your clients. Let's go back to, as you mentioned, Yvonne, people who are selling information services or agency work or whatever. If you're only selling your information and there's no engagement, it matters very little who you sell to, because there is no engagement. And so there is no transfer of energy. So there is no decline in your energy or in the energy of a group for selling that. However, many people choose to raise their fees by engaging more intimately, being a consultant, being a trainer, being a spiritual leader, being a guide, being a Sherpa, something. And the value of your group is not defined by the most valuable person that you are able to attract, but it's defined by the weakest link that you are willing to accept.
Wow.
And at some point, if you continue to accept weaker and weaker and weaker links, the chain of commitment breaks down, the chain of clarity breaks down, and people who are at a high level will opt to go somewhere where the tolerances are less open. I've had people say, though, oh my goodness, Kevin, I can understand that if I'm doing group training, but I am doing, one-on-one training. That soul and that spirit, and you know this because at the end of the day of dealing with people who are at incredibly high levels, you feel energized and excited, thrilled.
Absolutely.
And when you get at the end of the day with someone who's maybe a bit more draining, you feel, heavy and weighty. So even your private clients can feel, no matter the mask, no matter the facade, they can feel the sincerity in your intimate delivery of where you've been hanging out. And if you've been hanging out at a much lower level of play and a much lower level of commitment, they can feel that. And no matter your capacity to help at a high level, the likelihood that you'll be able to perform at that level is reduced when you begin to accept, lower level people into your spiritual realm. So my feedback for people who are looking to attract people at incredibly high levels of performance is to be that person of high level performance. Many times that means rejecting money that you may get for business that that you shouldn't, but it doesn't take that much time of building a really, really high level group that rejects the small before, the energy starts to show up that this is something that it's exclusive. Exclusive clubs are always built around more about who's not there than who is.
Wow. I'm going to recommend, as a recommendation for everyone to write this down and go and just think about it. It's the deletion process is really sometimes even more important than the adding into. Right? Kind of the adding takes care of itself. When you have the good energy, when you have the good people around you, so true. When I surround myself with people that are not even go-getters, but they are just good humans, striving, thriving. They have excellence in at least one skill that they do. They're committed to keep evolving and everything. It's there's no brainer. It's a no brainer for me to keep growing myself and evolving as such. And it's so draining. It is so really literally draining, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to have someone that just complains, right? Or that is just not willing to put in the work required to ascend in a way. So, Kevin, one of the things that, I've been talking in Latin America a little bit about you, and I do have a couple of questions from people that, that they've been following you on the media and everything. And one of the things they asked me was like, how does Kevin does it? He uses organic social media. And instead of me explaining to them, because they're like, Yvonne, why do you tell us that? Don't worry about your website if you are just really skilled at something good, that you resolve a problem for people. Do that first. Would you like to expand? Because that's a direct question we have from the people in Latin America. How is that you use organic social media to build such an incredible business that you've had built over the past, I believe, 2 decades?
Not quite, but close to 19 years.
All right,
Yeah,
19 years.
yeah,
19
we're
years.
coming up on 2 decades, but not quite there yet.
All right.
But
My
yes,
apologies. My
just
apologies.
almost 19 years. So yeah, that's very close. I just had to react there for a moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think that this is an unfortunate answer, but it is my answer, and then I'll go deeper maybe into some help. So much of the time, if someone's been in business for, let's say, more than 90, let's say 90 days.
Okay.
If someone's been in business for 90 days or more, so much of the time, it is not that they are operating at a level of quality that the market is unaware of. It is that they are operating at a level of quality that the market is quite aware of.
Boom.
Many people think, oh, well, if the market knew more about, how great I was, they would buy.
Right.
My stipulation is the market does know already, because I can tell you, Yvonne, if you found a place to buy, I don't know, something that you really, really loved, at a price that was such a good value for something that you really loved, you would tell all of your friends immediately.
Yes.
And so if people aren't sharing that, and I do grow a lot through organic social media, but I also grow a lot through direct referral from,
Yes.
people to, one person to the next, to the next, to the next, where people have a great experience. A lot of my clients do that. And I just had this experience this week where yet again, someone reached out frustrated and said, I see the people that you work with, and they started listing all of the assets besides a quality state of being and a quality offer. And it's like, well, they might have this big following to begin with. They might have this, they might have that. I don't have those things. And the truth be told is, if you offer something that is incredibly disproportionately valuable in your client's eyes, the word will get out very, very quickly. And if the word isn't getting out, and we started this conversation this way, many people think that they need to raise the volume on a performance that few people want to hear.
Wow.
So the first thing is just become great at what you do, and define that by your most critical clients' feedback, not by, looking in the mirror or finding that one person who, may flatter you and not necessarily tell you the critical truth. And you're not competing against a minimum standard of, do I do this well enough to be in business? You're competing against the standard, do I do this far more excellently than the best person in business, to the degree that people are going to pick me over them? And I think people, define MVP many times as a minimum viable product. Really, an MVP is the maximum value product.
Oh,
And
I love this so
you
much.
you need to make sure that your product is the maximum value. Seek out the most powerful person in your industry. And even if you don't do the totality of what they do, and here's another reason that people tend not to draw attention to themselves, is that they claim mastery in such a broad breadth of expertise because they think piling on more is better. And people then judge them by the observation of the weakest link strategy. And if people see one untruth in what you promote, however gray that is, I don't mean black untruth, but whatever level of gray that is, if people see one untruth, they tend to begin that state of disbelief and losing faith. Where if you said you only did one thing rather than 50, and then you began to do that thing, if you say, oh my goodness, I'm the best house cleaner in the world. Well, there's so many house cleaners in the world. But if you said, I'm the best silver polisher in the entire world, that's such a unique and specific position, but who has silver that they want polished to the greatest, competitive level? Well, people in regard who are going to be serving people on actual silver and things like that. And then you begin, if indeed that is true, and if you focus on that and learn the nuance of just silver polishing versus saying, I can clean a house better than anyone else, including everything. If you just said I'm the best silver polisher, I just pulled that idea out of midair. So the story might be falling apart. But if you just did that, then, the kings and princes and queens and princesses and, people of high regard are going to begin looking for you, and you don't have to compete in the other 49 or 50 or 100 areas that you might have thought necessary. So I think many times people define themselves far too broadly to be believable as a competitive expert. And many times you can become great at just one small specific thing versus trying to claim some huge mountain.
Wow, specialization. Yeah, that's, it's, I have a couple of other questions. Let's see if we can, if you have the time, Kevin. Thank you for being here and sharing all this wisdom. I have more notes right now, than I had them before this call. Um, the next question they asked me was, and I think someone must have read a post that you shared. I just have this question from Rebecca, who owns a big production company in Latin America, all over, Puerto Rico. She said a couple of places, but she said, um, there were 3 points. I believe she said that you had 3 points of when you choose who not to sell. And I think what she shares that you shared, that you have to be consistent, be clear, but she emphasized the be kind. She said, I come from mentorship that is so based on bravado, in yelling at you, in kind of, and you and I had spoken about this well, and you also had shared it in the masterminds, this alpha mentality without being kind, without being benevolent. And she said she suffered a lot. She actually lost $3.2 million last year based on all of these struggling alpha kind of things. So her question is, how much, how do you, and I know that this may sound simple for many, but she has this specific question, and I thought it was important to bring benevolence into the equation of business and faith and money. How would you, how can you regulate, or I'm trying to just put her words into perspective. What is the role of kindness in making big money? That's the next question, and that's the last one before we share with people how they can work with you. But how is the role that kindness play in good mentorship and good business making?
I think that when one is unkind, yet strong and firm, strong meaning forceful. We'll go back to the David Hawkins power versus force,
Yes.
And define the difference between those. When someone is forceful versus powerful, they tend to have a higher volume. And I think that forceful leaders attract subservient followers. Many times subservient followers, though, become resentful and move on and, denigrate that person at some point. Whereas, I disagree a lot with my clients and friends, and even you and I, Yvonne, could disagree. Maybe we have disagreed in the past, but it passes so quickly because the disagreement is not a search for right or a search for strength or an arm wrestling contest or a mind wrestling contest or a heart wrestling contest. But it's a search for breadth of understanding, because you may have data points that I don't have. Doesn't mean I'll change my mind, but I can, even if I stay with my own belief, I can believe it with more data points. I think that many times that, people who are unkind, and I can't speak to why they do what they do, only surmise, people who are less kind may actually be less confident in their skill set. And I can't imagine why that wouldn't be true, because if they were more confident in their skill set, why would they need to add the element of force to prove their point. Gravity is going to be gravity no matter how much you yell at it.